has. And so the question is, where do you stand on this issue? Should we reduce the size of the legislature and or go to a unicameral legislature, particularly to make government more efficient and less costly? Since the incumbent led off on the opening statements, I'll give Mr. Connolly the opportunity to go first on this question.
Well, thank you. That is an excellent question, and it's a very good point. Pennsylvania per capita is one of the most overrepresented states in the Union. We have 50 senators, 203 representatives. They each have a staff that averages about 11 people. We get state cars. All of this, I think, is quite excessive. It costs the taxpayers quite a bit of money. I think we should reduce it. But the inherent problem is the people who make the laws and will change this law are the ones in office. And you're going to have a hard time finding an incumbent politician who will vote themselves out of a job. Personally, and I've discussed this with others, I think we ought to have 25 senators, 2 representatives per Senate district, or simply shrink the pay and staff of everyone to equal what that budget would be. I think that's the right way to go. I think it would end a lot of waste and a lot of the bickering and partisanship that occurs during the budget process.
Thank you, Ms. Boscola.
Yes. When I was first elected to the House of Representatives and then into the Senate, one of the very first pieces of legislation I introduced was reduce the size of the state legislature. And the reason that I do that is because as we move forward in this economy and we're asking everybody to cut back, unlike my challenger over here who says we should run like a business, I think we need to run more like a family. Because businesses are in they're supposed to make a profit, businesses. The government isn't in the business to make a profit, but we should be acting more like a family. And so when we tell families that they have to cut back, when they're not getting pay increases or their jobs are being cut, and then we ask them to sacrifice, but we're not willing to do it ourselves, then that's not the right way to go. So that's why ever since I was elected, I've been introducing the bills on downsizing the legislature. And for all those other colleagues of mine that have the same idea, I'm a co-sponsor of their legislation because there's numerous bills out there. Some want to downsize by 50%, others by 75%, or over a longer period of time finally get the numbers down. But it wasn't sexy 16 years ago to talk about it. But I was on board way back then, and I continue to be on board.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask a couple questions now about a hot issue in the state, Marcellus shale gas extraction. And I guess the first question would be, would you favor a moratorium, either partial or complete at this point, on the exploitation of that gas until we have more studies and information about the environmental impacts of that? Or do you think we should go forward with it? The governor has placed a moratorium on state forest land. Ms. Boscola, would you like to go first on this question?
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of a moratorium right now because this extraction of natural gas, we have one chance to do this right, one chance. We have to learn the lessons of coal, when we were mining coal, and the acid mine drainage that we're still dealing with environmentally. Hundreds of millions of dollars still pumped into trying to solve that problem. So we need to tread carefully when we talk about extracting natural gas. I'm for a moratorium to get it right. But the debate in Harrisburg is not directed that way. It's directed toward a tax on the drilling of Marcellus shale. So the debate is about whether we should tax the volume versus the percentage of the value. And the dilemma between the House and the Senate and the governor is how much this industry should be taxed. Look, if they're going to tax it, I believe that all that money should be going toward environmental protection, and the local communities are going to have to suffer through it. And look, we have one shot. We are all God's tenants on this earth to protect our environment. If that our Lehigh River is polluted because of Marcellus shale, you know I'll be out there fighting constantly to make sure that the drillers pay.
Thank you. Mr. Connolly.
I do not support a moratorium on Marcellus gas production. I'm very interested in this. I was in the heating business for many years and knew quite a bit about it. I ended up interviewing an executive and a driller that does fracking. It can be done very safely. Marcellus shale is not to be confused with the kind of rock shale you have in Colorado and other places. 9,000 feet underground, it can be done very safely. It can be done with an absolutely minimal impact. We cannot blame the gas and our need for the gas for some of the problems that have been caused by irresponsible drillers. I am all for, as part of the permit fees, having the gas companies and the gas producers pay for independent third-party monitoring, have very stiff fines for any breaches in environmental regulations or any kind of pollution. We need to become a net energy exporter in this state. We cannot keep taking our oil from people who don't like us overseas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Connolly. Following up on that question in terms of revenue,